Hi everyone, this is Abel. Welcome back to my channel. First of all, let me thank you for your help and your support. Being on BookTube, it's been almost 1 month and a half. It's been a blast, and it's been a blast because of you, because of your support, because of your kind messages, because of your bookish suggestions. It's been amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Please keep doing it. Last week I uploaded my first book haul. 40 plus books and ebooks, science fiction and fantasy books and ebooks. It was really fun. Thank you for watching it. And now it's time for my collection of self-published science fiction and fantasy books. But before we start, remember that if you like science fiction and fantasy, especially space opera and big, huge, epic fantasy books, this channel is the perfect place for you. Leave a like if you like this video, consider subscribing if you want to see more. So the first two books I'm showing you are from author Christopher Rosell. It's been a minute, it's been a couple of years since I first had the pleasure to get in contact with him on Instagram, I think, or on Facebook, I don't remember. I just remember that I had the pleasure to read a digital arc of the book. Of course, I was hooked because of the cover. The cover is from Chris McGrath. He's one of the top-notch illustrators and artists. He's made covers for Brandon Sanderson, from Jim Butcher. So when I saw that cover, the one from this book, I was enamored. It was love at first sight. And I am happy to tell you that not only the book looks amazing on the outside, because I'm superficial like that, but it is a very, very good, and Christopher Rosell is an amazing person. But let's go and see the details. This is the first book, Divinity's Twilight Rebirth. It's a mix between epic fantasy and a bit of a steampunk aesthetic, but I don't know if this makes justice to the complexity of the world and the deepness of the story. I'll try to be vague, but you can see the influences of Brandon Sanderson when you read this book, because it has that kind of a complex world building that is very layered, and it is very deeply connected to the background of every character and to the background of the nations when the story is taking place. And one of the few things you'll notice is that at first, on first reading, the impact is that the prologue is very long. It is very expensive. You will have the feeling that that's actually the story, that the characters you're reading there will be the main characters during the whole series. But that's not it, because the series starts several hundred years later, or thousands. Yeah, I don't remember exactly because it's been a while. I need to reread it. So you'll see the consequences of what happened in that huge prologue and how the struggle, the conflict that was told in that epic moment, that pivotal moment in the stories of that country, they were going to be the building blocks for other countries that were blossoming after the end of that, and how those different countries have different cultures because of that pivotal moment that went to define the actual fabric of reality in modern time, during the let's say modern setting. Of course it has I told you that mix of an aesthetic between the classic science, classic fantasy, epic fantasy. It has a chivalry, it has a classicness in the way people speak and the way they behave and the interpersonal relationship, but it has a touch of all that will happen in a world that kind of fantasy aesthetic will be mixed with steampunk, because the way they fight, it's pretty different. It is very, very complex. Just to be clear, you have airships here. They fight in the skies. So that's different from the usual epic fantasy you'll find. And people have incredible abilities, supernatural abilities, and there's different ways to acquire that kind of supernatural abilities. And you'll see a small group of guys enlisting in the army, and that's the core cast that you'll be followed during the first book, and you'll see how those characters have been influenced by what happened in that prologue, that it's been settled so many hundred years ago. It is very complex, it's very funny, it has a joyous mix of very hard-hitting, very dramatic scenes, and a bit of a lighter tone, which is done very tastefully for me. The first book was good, it was very good, it was a blast, but I could see that there was room for a huge improvements, that it could have been done more maturely. Of course, Chris was very young when he was reading. I think he was around 26 or 27 when he wrote book 1. Chris, if you're watching this video, feel free to correct me. I was pretty sure that book 2 was going to be better, because if you follow Christopher on Instagram or Facebook, you'll see he's pretty active. He goes on a lot of convention, and you'll have the feeling that he's a very smart man, and he's very knowledgeable. He's a scientist, a researcher, I think. That knowledge transpires in a way in his books, but he's a very sweet guy, a very decent guy. It is a blast being in contact with him, and I could feel that book 2 was going to be better. He was going to be more mature than book 1, and I'm happy to say I was right. Yeah, he is huge. This beast of a book is Divinity's Twilight Remnant. The cover art again is from Chris McGrath. And I'll try to be very light on the description, and I will only tell you that this is bigger, stronger, and better than book 1. You can clearly see how especially the character work here is better. The characters are deeper, their interactions are more deeper and meaningful. I've written about this on my review that you will find on Goodreads. If book 1 was good, book 2 is excellent. It is even more dramatic, it is even more funny, and it has a bigger scope. You'll see the world, you'll get to know the world better. You'll see how the world building affects the story better. It has huge set pieces, it's more cinematic. It's better in every way that you can think. Every way possible. It's been a pleasure to follow this series. I know that Christopher is actively working on book 3, and I can't wait to put my paws on book 3 and to start reread book 1 and 2, because I told you, especially for book 1, it's been a minute, and I want to have a perfect idea of what happened before I start reading book 3. The second series I'm showing to you, it's special for me. And it is special because it looks like the author specifically wrote this series for me, and I've told you about this in my September wrap-up. Yeah, in my September wrap-up, when I read the first book. I'll show you the whole series, and then I'm going to hold just book 1 because I'm not able to juggle everything. So the series is Legend of Tal by J.D.L. Rosell, that I call Josiah because I'm picky like that, because I like the way the name sounds. So I'm going to use Josiah. Yeah, because I'm like that. Legend of Tal is a very classic and at the same time very modern epic fantasy series. It is about this character, Tal, which at the beginning of the book is living a very secluded life. He was a hero. There are minstrels all around the world singing song about his amazing deeds, But he has a dark past too, and not everything that is being told about him is true. He knows about it, and he knows that in order to keep living that secluded life, he has to be separated from that past. But of course, as in all the bad story, that past is going to reclaim space in his life, and from that the story goes. So book 1 is Legend of Tal, A King Bargains, which is pretty short and sweet, so I suggest you to give it a try to have a sense of the kind of story you're going to get. And I'm pretty sure you're not going to stop. So book 1 is that one. Book 2 is Legend of Tal, A Queen's Command. By the way, the covers are from artist René Agnier, or René Agnier. Then we have an Emperor's Gamble, the last book, which is a huge chunker, how it should be. Every book is bigger than the last one, and it is A God's Plea. I have a deep emotional connection with these stories and with the whole cast, because it is epic, it is huge, but it is very intimate too. Tal is an amazing character. He is the epitome of a grey character because he did some brutal stuff, some incredibly questionable thing, but in a way, somehow, he gets to remain a decent person, which is questionable on itself as a statement, because as you read the book, you'll see that that's a different shade of reality. You can perceive it like true or not, and the characters in this series, they perceive that reality as truth or not. They could easily be seeing Tal, this main character, as the main villain, as a monster. And that's the beauty of the story. And of course, the prose, the writing style of Josiah. It is amazing. This book is very nicely written, but book 2 is a feast for the eye and for the reading. I don't know how he does it, but the author is able to interwove together beautiful prose without it being excessive, without stealing the scene from the actual story. You see the fighting scene being done so cinematically and so, and it's action-packed but not excessively, because you know when a book is so focused on action, it tends to be just action. It tends to become really dull. It happened to me, for example, with the first couple of books in the Red Rising series, which I'm probably going to reread, hopefully in the beginning of next year. The action is so pumped up and so constant that it became this gray and red fuzz of people fighting and of bloodshed that lost all meaning for me. Here, every fight has a huge emotional impact. Every scene is carefully planned. Everything has huge consequences. So you'll have this classic story of the man forced to face his past. You'll see that you have on parallel with Tal the story of Garin, this young boy that follows him, that has a even more classic story of a young guy acquiring a huge powers and a huge status, and going to be extremely important in the future of the countries that we see in this place. But you'll see that the personal authorial sensibility of Josiah Rosell makes it unique and special. Of course, every book is unique because of that authorial voice. But this is something else. This is something else. You have to give it a try. You have to read it. I need to know more people in love with this series and ready to gush about it with me. This is In the Orbit of Sirens by T.A. Bruno, a space opera. I think it was the debut book from T.A. Bruno. and I fell in love with this book. I read it twice, and it is very rare for me to read a book more than once because I don't have time and I don't have the attention span to do that. There's too many books, too little time. But this one was amazing because it has that huge scope you're searching for in a space opera and a complex structure because you have different timelines and two different casts that then are going to be intermixed and interwoven in the second part of the book, and when they meet it's a huge blast of action. This is about a far future story of colonization. There is a colonial ship going to colonize a new planet, but when they get to the planet they have a lot of problems, especially medical ones, because they cannot breathe the air on that planet. So the first struggle they have is to find a way to cure the disease that is coming when they try to breathe the air from that planet. And then you have a second storyline of another generational ship traveling to that planet, escaping from Earth because the solar system is being invaded. And you have a different fight there. And I knew that when they escaped that original fight, they were going to be forced to face it again. And I'm happy to say that I was right, because at the end of book 2, it is pretty apparent that what was going to be hinted in book 1, it needed to have a bigger, more detailed resolution later on. And I think it is the focus for book 3. I've read book 1, I've read book 2, they're both amazing. Book 2 is pretty different because it has a different structure. It is smaller in a way, but it has bigger consequences at the end, and you will understand it when you read it. They're two very different books, but they complement each other very well. And there are a couple of interviews on YouTube with T.A. Bruno when he speaks about his creative and writing process. You'll see how smart that guy is. He's the sweetest man you can imagine. It's been a pleasure to be in contact with him and being a fan of his books. And he has come up with another book, a standalone, Down Below Beyond, I think. Yes, I haven't read that still, but I will do it pretty soon. And I'd suggest you to give it a try. This trilogy is amazing, and all the books have been awarded in some way, so I'm not the only one. There is a little but fierce fandom circulating around those books. I'm pretty happy to be part of it. Then I have The Beckoning of the Gate by Benjamin J. Ryan. Now, I wouldn't consider this exactly self-publishing. It is more of an indie publish because the publishing company, it's very small. It's called Odyssey Book. Yes, but it is that kind of company, it is that kind of a deal that puts the author in a position to do a lot of work by himself on the marketing side. So let's say indie published. This is a story that has Irish folklore influences. That is a kind of folklore that I know absolutely nothing about it. So for me it was really fresh, really original. But by judging by the other reviews on Goodreads and on Amazon, it looks like that folklore has been tastefully handled here. The story is about a young girl that before the actual beginning of the story of the book, she goes through a very traumatic event that changes completely her view of the world and their relationship with her family and the way she interacts with the other people in the small city when she lives in. And she's basically forced to flee from that city, and then she finds a key that it's very, very looked upon. It is very precious, and many people want to put their paws on that it opens the story to a completely new perspective for her. And that's the actual beginning of the quest, let's say. side of the story, the actual beginning of the adventure. That doesn't start very soon because the author takes its time to establish the character, establish her relationship with her family and the place where she lives in, which is not a really nice place. It is a pretty strong-willed characters, and it can be a hit or miss. I wasn't a fan of her interaction with everybody because somehow it looked like she was bullying everybody she was meeting. But that's the way I perceived her. I've seen many other people falling in love with her because she's so strong-willed. So it's up to you if that kind of portrayal of a female character would be fascinating or annoying for you. For me it was slightly annoying, but it didn't detract from the actual enjoyment of the story, because I have to say that Benjamin J. Ryan has an amazing craftsmanship about the writing style. The way he puts word after word and he builds sentences and paragraphs and chapter, it's very good, very nice. It is very smooth. You will not think this is a debut book. You will think that this is a very experienced author with 10, 15, 20 years of writing on his back, but it is not. This was a debut novel, which is clearly, smartly and expertly written. So I suggest you to give it a try. It is very interesting. It was really original for me, and I'm sure you'll at least enjoy it. And if you like the character, you're going to love it. Guys, this is Abel from the future. I'm hijacking this transmission because during the editing process of this video I realized it was too long. It was more than 1 hour long. So I'm stopping here. I'm splitting the video in 2. This is part 1, and stay tuned for part 2. That's all I've got for you this time. Thank you for sticking till to the end of the video. This was my indie books collection. If you want to see my most recent book haul, you'll find the link at the end of the video. And remember that every interaction counts. Every like, every comment really helps the channel a lot. And remember also that if you like science fiction and fantasy, especially space opera and big, huge epic fantasy books, this channel is the perfect place for you. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.